Good evening, family, and welcome to Let's Talk Live. This evening, we are actually going to have back on the pelvic floor therapist, Sonia Okolo. So, we're going to be discussing painful and uncomfortable intercourse. There are so many people that have this complaint that don't discuss it, whether it's something they experience as a younger person or an issue that shows up for them postpartum. And a lot of times, folks don't know exactly who to go to for support. And so, we're going to have Sonia on to kind of discuss what that looks like, how support can take place from a pelvic floor therapist, and what exactly you should be looking out for. So as we're waiting for her to join us, I also want to just share a little bit about what we have going on and what will be taking place in the upcoming weeks. We have our next training in Denver, Colorado for the traditional postpartum doula training. We are going to be hosted by Mama Bird Maternity Wellness. And so if you're in Colorado, in the Denver or Aurora area, Mama Bird Maternity Wellness is freshly opened. I believe they opened in April, but they have all things for moms of color. I'm talking yoni steams, massage therapist. They have the works, and it's a beautiful, beautiful facility. The owner, Bertie Johnson, runs it. So again, if you're in the Colorado area, Mama Bird Maternity Wellness, you've got to check it out. They have a beautiful retail space where tons of locally Black-owned companies have their products there. I believe most of the doulas there and practitioners are also women of color. So again, we'll be hosting our next training there in Colorado the weekend of June 15th through the 17th. After that, I want you guys also to stay tuned tomorrow. We have a very, very exciting announcement for myself and on behalf of my nonprofit, Akio New Birth Foundation. And so tomorrow afternoon, please stay tuned to the channel. We have an amazing announcement that we're really, really looking forward to. So right now we are just waiting for Sonia to pop in. If you have any questions or if you have any concerns about discomfort or pain that you've experienced at all on your sexual journey, please, let me see, I need to request you, I think. Or you need to request me. I see you, Sonia, but you got to request to join. So yeah, please put your questions in the chat so that we can make sure that we're asking those questions of her. Let me see. Are you there? So pardon our technical difficulties. We're waiting for her to just pop up on the screen. But yeah, so stay tuned. And again, if you have any questions or if you've experienced any discomfort in the past and you're looking for some solutions, please stay tuned. I'm excited to hear about this as well. So Sonia, I sent the invite. You have to accept it, I'm guessing, and then join. So the other thing while we're waiting for her to actually join in is sometimes we have a little bit of shame around some of these issues that we experience, and we can become very isolated, not knowing that there are people who can actually help us. And so that's the other reason I want to make sure that when we're coming on lives every Tuesday, that we're talking about some of the more unpopular subject matter so that people don't feel so isolated and feeling like they need to suffer in silence. It's very important that we feel that we are heard and that there's someone else that's experiencing what we experience. I think we have got you live. Are you there, Sonia? I apologize for the technical difficulties, y'all. Let me see if she accepted. So my screen went up, but I don't see her. But yeah, again, just about not having people feel shamed or that what they're experiencing is in a silo. So I've had plenty of folks that have just had an issue with this discomfort in the past, and no one talks about it. It's full of shame and it's full of, I don't know, I guess shame is the main emotion. So there she is. Hey. So, I'm glad that you made it. Can you see me clearly?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. I can hear you great. So
Oh,
I just want to get right into it. I was just kind
yeah.
of just talking a little bit about how sometimes this subject matter in particular can leave people feeling shameful and not wanting to communicate about what they're experiencing. And so I really want to go ahead and normalize it and really get into the nitty gritty and talk about how people can be supported if they are experiencing issues with painful or uncomfortable intercourse. So I want to know from a pelvic PT's perspective, what do you see as the top contributing factors to painful sex?
Yeah, I would say there's a few things in different populations, um, but I would say across the board with age range and background demographics is definitely stress and anxiety is, I would say, very common. I probably discuss that more than anything in my sessions with people. Um, just, when our nervous system is kind of ramped up, tension holding can happen, just like you can have a tension headache or neck tension. The pelvic floor holds tension. And if the pelvic floor is not pliable, movable, which is needed for intercourse, right? It's going to be painful, you know. And so that's something that is very common. Um, Certainly, scar tissue that can come after delivery, um, having different perennial tears, birth trauma, just the loading on that area. The tissue's inflamed and sore, and depending on how long, especially that second stage of labor is, it can be a lot of pressure and healing on the pelvic floor at that time. Um, and I would say probably the third thing would be hormonal fluctuations.
Hmm.
That's huge. Um, there are some people who are very sensitive to birth control use. They don't realize that prolonged birth control can affect the hormone receptors in the vulva and cause a lot of tissue irritation and sensitivity. Um, Estrogen drops from breastfeeding, perimenopause, menopause, hormonal fluctuations can have great challenges on the vulvar vaginal tissue where things, just very much change. And so it can feel like sandpaper and rawness. It's not, just because of the hormonal changes. So everybody comes with a different why.
Yeah, yeah.
The journey is really, discovering the cause and the different contributing factors for why they're presenting with painful intercourse. And certainly trauma has its place. Um, you can completely see sexual trauma, but even emotional or physical trauma, if you're a receiver of it or just a witness growing up in a high conflict home, that can really impact emotional response and holding and tension holding and that sort of thing. But
Thank you for highlighting that because I think sometimes we are looking at it's a partner issue where there's something wrong with me, but I think it's so important to understand that in every aspect of our health, it is that mind, body, spirit component, right?
absolutely, yes, very.
Our bodies are made up of muscles and emotions and particles that work in tandem with each other. And so it's really important to understand that, like, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, they are always and ever connected.
Yeah.
Um, So what are some signs? So you say maybe someone has one experience and they're in a lot of pain, and then the next time they're fine, and then it creeps back up. What are some signs that someone really needs to get some support with the level of discomfort or pain that they're experiencing in these exchanges, the intercourse that they're engaging in? What are some signs and some flags that are like, hey, hello, hello, get that checked out?
Sure. Well, definitely intercourse should be pleasurable, right? For vulvar owners, the clitoris is purely for pleasure. That's its function. And so we don't want intercourse to be uncomfortable ever. So, of course, if there is tissue healing, whether you've had surgery or, again, childbirth and delivery, it does take time, for healing.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a lot that goes into the sexual response cycle, from libido to arousal to actual muscle performance, organ. So things can kind of go wonky at any stage of the game there. But often if there is pelvic floor dysfunction, usually I find it's other things going on too. So whether there is bladder control issues, urgency, frequency, maybe some hesitation or retention. Normally you have to, you get an urge, you sit, you void, it should come out freely. You shouldn't have to push or strain or do tricks to, that sort of thing. So it can show up there. It can also show up with constipation issues, um, with bowel movements. Um, the muscles have to open and relax to allow things to come out. So so it can come up there. If this is Prolapse Awareness Month, and so if a prolapse is when some of the internal organs have slipped down out of place, whether it's the bladder, the uterus, or the rectum. And so many times people will report it feels like a block, or my partner says he's hitting something, or they're hitting something. So, that can affect things too. So basically, if there's any discomfort or impact along that response cycle, um, it's worth talking about. And I would say people don't usually tell their providers. And I'm in the pelvic health field, and I've gone through different stages of the spectrum of of development and womanhood, and I can't say that doctors ask me that question ever, you know
Yeah.
so unless you be
Because it's so personal, and it's kind of like, who wants to really say, I'm not enjoying intimacy,
right.
or it hurts, or even really want to discuss it in a forum where a lot of people even just struggle to speak to their own partner about it. So now going to a third party that's not even involved, it normally, what I found and what I've heard is that it has to escalate so far before people are like, I can't take it anymore. I need support. And, my goal tonight is like, hey, let's be tapped into our bodies earlier on, where if anything is uncomfortable or anything is painful, that we feel okay with seeking out support way earlier in the process, and getting help. So when someone comes to you and they're talking about pain or discomfort that they're experiencing, what are some of the tools that you use as a pelvic floor therapist to help, for instance, reset prolapse, or to really help exercise the body to get back in balance? What does that look like from you, from your perspective?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, it's definitely about figuring out the why. And sometimes patients come to me and they've gone through a very good exam, but most of the time their their providers just send them without a very detailed exam. They just know things hurt. We're going to start there. So start with pelvic PT. So I always start with, a proper screen of just looking at outside muscles that are surrounding the vulvar area. People don't realize how much their spine and hip play a part in, how the pelvic floor works. So that's an important part of the screen. And then we also look at the vulvar tissue itself. There's something called a Q-tip test. A Q-tip should feel like a soft Q-tip. And so touching parts of the opening of the vagina around at the vulva, it should feel soft, not painful. And so those are signs that something, needs to be addressed. There's tissue irritation and some further assessment needs to be looked at. And then, of course, my hands, just like I massage and work with your neck, your back, my hands are my greatest tool with using, that to work on the pelvic floor itself. And we have different tools. I have a few things here to help with a home program, because as I work with patients, giving them exercises, we talked last time about the power of breath and the importance of breath work and how that quiets the nervous system and helps relax the pelvic floor, creating more mobility. Those are important, but then giving them things to work on. So for example, I have, if you've ever heard of like dilator therapy, I have different.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it. I'm learning.
So it looks like this. So yeah, so literally, sorry, my screen is here. So literally, around the vaginal opening, of course, it's a circular muscle. So if it's tightness or spasm or pain, we can use a device. It's just a tool, just like you have a stretching strap or something else, but literally you can hear and just stretch and move the tissue, working on movements. And it goes through various sizes. Like some people, their partner size or goal size is this. And so we start with where they are. And that's an important thing, to take pain and fear out of treating the tissue, because as long as fear is present and that pain persists and keeps getting aggravated, it creates this fear, spasm, reactive pain cycle, then creates more pain. And then when you're having pain, your libido goes down, there's no lubrication, tissue gets irritated, it becomes such a vicious cycle. Yeah. So yes, dilator therapy is one thing we do. Another thing is a pelvic wand. I don't know if you've heard of that. So here's one. They have other types, but it's kind of shaped like my finger, if you can see that. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry I don't have my pelvis with me tonight, but when working with the pelvic floor, I can, when I, going in, I can go in and touch and do trigger like muscle releases. So this is a tool that I would teach them to stretch and to reach deep into the pelvis to do like trigger point releases, just like you would have like for your neck. It's kind of the same thing, but for your pelvis. So, so those are tools. As much as I, work with people, it's definitely equipping them and empowering them to take ownership over their own bodies. I'll share just one more, I guess two more things. So there's a device called an O-nut, if you guys have ever heard of that. But for people who have
O-nut, can you spell it?
Yes, like a donut. It looks like this.
Oh, O-nut. Okay.
Called the O-nut, yes. And so for people who have like just with painful, like especially a deep penetration pain, it kind of serves as like a bumper almost. So you can have different rings there. So I'll just share with this. So if I have, you can just imagine, right? So you can use this, and we can do up to 4 rings. So if there is penetration, it would allow a comfortable penetration without going so deep. So there's definitely tools and things that people can do. And of course, just really broadening your scope, your view of intimacy while you're going through this transition of managing pain, because again, it should be pleasurable and not something that is causing more fear, more pain, more tension and stress in the relationships. And I've seen all sorts of things over the years, to happen and trying to manage that. So,
So
um,
this is amazing. First of all, I have never even heard of any of these things that you are sharing here. And I'm just so grateful that you're bringing it to light. Like you can get support. And when you refer to it kind of similar to like those muscle spasms, it's like once you work through it and
mhm.
you've received the therapy, the releases should happen. The tension should be released and you can actually have a beautiful, um, intimate exchange with your partner, but like not to suffer in silence and think that everything that's happening, you just got to grin and bear it. And so, for those who might be confused and they might say, oh my God, like that's not me. I don't even know what she's talking about. What is the normal range of discomfort during sex versus abnormal? Like, how would someone know that what they're experiencing actually is not on the normal spectrum?
Wow. Um, Gosh, that's an interesting question. Let's see. So my first answer was like, I don't ever want it to be painful, right? That's kind
Oh,
of,
I'm with you. I'm with you on
yeah,
that.
I think that would be my absolute answer. But there are some people who have, chronic conditions, whether it's endometriosis, adenomyosis, um, if they have back issues or hip issues. And so when they come to me in the clinic, my job is to help them be creative addressing that. So, you know, just like if you have to lift at work and we have to figure out how to lift boxes safely and protect that. So with intimacy, whether we use, props or wedges, or we talk mechanics of positions, because that affects tissue. So, and again, there's tools and things like that to do, and just learning your body, because I've heard people say too, oh, I have a tilted uterus. So if anatomically things are a certain way, then you know that, and switch and have
Self
conversations
accordingly.
with your partner, right? And certainly be an advocate for yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. So I see Leonce Jones, hopefully I'm saying that properly. She said, or they said, who knew there were tools like this to help with these challenges? I'm
Yes.
like, right? Like, we
Yes.
don't have to, folks don't have to suffer in
Right.
silence. And so, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this information and helping us bring light. So, on my side of things, working with pregnant folks and
Mhm.
postpartum folks, they're always these whispers of is this normal? What's happening? And again, even if it's not something that I've personally experienced, I'm like, we don't need to suffer in silence. Let's talk about this.
Absolutely.
There's a whole profession of people that are here to help support you so you don't have to experience this discomfort alone. So if you are watching, thank you, Sonia, for coming on and sharing with us this
Yes. Thank
amazing
you.
information. But Sonia is an amazing pelvic floor PT. She offers free consults through her company, oasispt.net, but it's Oasis Pelvic Floor Therapy. She is the owner and operator, and you can schedule and just have a conversation with her to kind of walk through what you're personally experiencing, and that you don't have to suffer in silence. You don't need to experience shame, and that you can take power back over your intimacy, over your body, that you can actually enjoy your body to the fullest and
Mhm.
how it was divinely created to be enjoyed. So I just want to encourage anyone that's watching this now
Mhm.
or on the replay to take ownership and take that first step. And so if it's just scheduling a consult with Sonia, hit her up, oasispt.net,
Yes.
or find a pelvic floor therapist in your area, and let's get it popping. Let's work through whatever these issues are. Like we should be able to enjoy our intimate moments, no matter what stage we're in life. So thank you so much, Sonia. I know you gotta go.
Yes. Thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate you so much for joining us. And I mean, I'm blown away. I learned so much tonight. So thank you so much for this wonderful information. Everyone in the comments has been like, oh my God, this is great information, amazing information, very good information,
Yeah.
so this is just awesome. And so thank you for being a part of helping to bring awareness to these subject matters and letting us know that there's a whole host of help out here for whatever we're going through. So
Thank
thank you
you.
guys for joining us for Let's Talk Live. We'll see you next Tuesday. Sonia, feel free to drop off if you need to. I know you have
Yeah.
other things. I'm just going to go ahead and close it out.
All right. Bye, dear. Thanks.
Bye.
Mhm.
So yes, please feel free to meet us here every Tuesday for Let's Talk Live. We're at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we're actually going to have an amazing nutritionist on to kind of talk us through the importance of nutrients in postpartum or just in general. Make sure you follow us here at I am Jacqueline Clemens, as well as www.delaluzwellness.com. And I just appreciate everyone for joining us this evening. So if you have any questions or any particular topics that you would like to see me address, I will do my best to bring on a subject matter specialist and talk about it. So I will see you guys next week, and I hope you guys all have an amazing evening. Bye.